Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about Beethoven's piano music that isn't the sonatas, and in particular, this fabulous set. Ronald Brautigam plays everything not sonata that matters. In other words, you get all the bagatelles, the variations, the rondos, and Klavierstücke, piano pieces, and of course, the Diabelli Variations. This is an absolutely fabulous set. It consists of 6 discs that are packaged exactly as the individual CDs were. In other words, you get a booklet plus a disc, then a booklet plus a disc, kind of layered like a lasagna. It's kind of like a Beethoven lasagna of piano music. And the performances are absolutely fabulous. But there's another reason why I wanted to talk about these, because, we had a video, of course, where we went through Beethoven sonata cycles, and there are millions and millions and millions of those. There are also millions and millions of performances of the great variation sets. You have lots of Diabelli variations, lots of Eroica variations, lots of C minor variations, but there are also lots of other variations that don't get recorded as frequently, including, for example, the variations on Rule Britannia and, famous operatic tunes of the day. And I love pieces like that. I really do. First of all, I'm a sucker for variations. I love variation writing generally. Why? Because it's a wonderful way to simply entertain your ear. You hear a tune, it's a catchy tune, and then you hear what the composer can do with it. And of course, nobody could do more with a tune than Beethoven could. And his variation sets are absolutely gorgeous and exciting to listen to. A lot of them were not published in his lifetime. He didn't bother to do it. They were written for, various people or various occasions. He probably didn't attach much value to them, aside from, the Diabellis and maybe the Eroica variations and a couple of the more formal large sets. But they're still wonderful to listen to. Similarly, the Bagatelles are delightful. They're very late works. They sort of crystallize that late Beethoven lyricism, which could be very elusive, but could also be very moving and surprising in a teeny tiny space. He's well known in his late works for the Missa Solemnis, the Ninth Symphony, the late quartets and piano sonatas, big things, big isolated project. But these are little what they call, chips off the master's workbench, and they're no less valuable for that. So it's really a wonderful thing to have this aspect of Beethoven's genius all gathered conveniently in a box, because it is a comprehensive survey of Beethoven. We know, of course, the piano sonatas covered his entire lifetime. And so you hear him move from, apprentice to colossal master within the span of 32 pieces, basically. But these works are no less comprehensive in terms of their scope, in terms of their chronology, as evidence of Beethoven's style at different points in his lifetime. You get the very, very earliest to the very, very latest, and it's wonderful. And you get it in a variety of different forms and media, rather than simply the sonata. So, and it's not also an inconsiderable amount of music either. I'm looking at this thing. It's 6 hours and 49 minutes worth of music on 6 very well-filled discs. So that's an issue too. I also want to talk about the instrument, because Ronald Brautigam is playing on a fortepiano, but a very good one. Brautigam is first and foremost, he's a great pianist, a great keyboard artist, whatever keyboard he happens to be playing. And the fact that he's using a fortepiano is important to the extent that it will allow you to hear the music with fresh ears. But it's not a fortepiano he's chosen because it sounds so different, so that the instrument makes the performance. These are his performances, very much so. And it doesn't really matter what instrument he's playing on to that extent. He exploits the capabilities of the instrument to make his interpretive points, but the interpretation always comes first, and he masters the instrument. to realize that interpretation. And that's what you want to hear in a great Beethoven or anybody performance generally, right? I'm so tired of these, supposedly authentic or historically informed performance where the choice of instrument is being used to cover up the fact that the performer or the players have absolutely no ideas whatsoever about how the music should go, and they let the sound of the instrument make their points for them. Brautigam never does that. And to prove it, I'm going to play you just a little tiny excerpt of, you guessed it, For Elise, which was probably supposed to have been For Teresa. They think it was, and his handwriting was scribbly or something, and they got it wrong. It doesn't make any difference. They're all dead. But it's a great little piece to hear how a performer handles a simple melody. And, ultimately, that's where the art is in all of this, right? How you phrase a melody. So here, take a listen. Interesting, isn't it? Distinctive. No, it's not just your typical, Liberace with the candelabra sort of swooning as the melody goes by. It has a certain urgency, a little bit of drama, maybe even a touch of passion. In other words, it sounds like Beethoven. It has personality, it has character, and the ability to give even this simple piece a certain slant, an angle, an approach which still does justice to the music, that isn't perverse or merely, random or kind of just wanton, is a wonderful thing. And Brautigam has that ability. Now, in the bigger works, for example, the Eroica Variations or the Diabellis, he's absolutely stupendous. Jed Disler, our piano maven and piano critic extraordinaire at classicstoday.com, thought the Diabellis was absolutely one of the great performances of that work yet recorded, and I can only agree wholeheartedly. It's an absolutely thrilling performance in which each variation is characterized to the max without ever losing sight of the overall trajectory of the piece. It's a magnificent performance. But, using a fortepiano also lets Brautigam restore to a certain extent that sense of struggle and strain that's so much a part of Beethoven's writing for his own instrument. We hear these stories about how Beethoven pounded the keyboard so hard that strings were snapping and, reducing the whole thing to rubble, and how he was always interested in new instruments that could actually support the power and drive that he gave his own performances. And you sense that in these performances. You do, because the instrument is a bit more fragile than the modern concert grand, which can absorb a lot more punishment than Beethoven usually metes out. And on a modern instrument, conveying that sense of struggle is difficult. It's difficult. It takes more work. Certain pianists manage to do it. I remember hearing, Claudio Rao's last recording of the Emperor Concerto, for example, where the development section of the first movement has such a sense of almost of anguish, even though it's a fairly happy piece of music. Well, with the forte piano, you get that feeling of music that's threatening to burst the bounds of the instrument. And it's a wonderful thing. It's just something that the instrument has, and Brautigam manages to push it without ever simply banging. So I just want to take this opportunity then to recommend as strongly as I possibly can, even if you know your Beethoven and you know the major works, the major variation sets and the Bagatelles, that you listen to these performances. They'll really strike you as something fresh and new and surprising and absolutely wonderful. And if you don't know Beethoven's non-sonata piano music and you want to take the plunge, I understand that six discs is a lot. These are available separately if you want to get them separately. If you just want to get the disc with Für Elise, get the disc that contains all the Bagatelles. It's called Für Elise on the cover of the album. But try to hear some or all of this set. It's a tremendous achievement in this Beethoven year in the art of Beethoven keyboard performance, and it really deserves the widest possible exposure and promotion, and I'm happy to be able to suggest that you listen to it now. So thank you so much for joining me for this little talk. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and tell all your friends and everybody to subscribe, because we're having a great time and there's lots more to come. Thank you so much. Enjoy your Beethoven. Keep on listening, folks.